The Bolt assessment test, or the body oxygen level test, was created by Patrick McKeown. He is the author of the Oxygen Advantage book. And he created this test to determine your relative breathing volume during rest and your breathlessness during physical activity or exercise. So to talk just a little bit about our breath, the average amount of breaths that each of us take in 1 minute is anywhere from 12 to 20 seconds. So you could always take some time to even record your breath and see how many breaths you take in 1 minute. And that's going to be relative to if you feel relaxed, if you are anxious, if you're feeling a little bit more stressed. So that's an interesting endeavor to examine. Roughly between that 12 and 20 breaths per minute, we notice that the average person takes about 15 breaths per minute. So that's what is stated. The tidal volume, so this is the amount of breath that we take, that we bring in the normal breath. So the amount of air that is breathed in a normal breath. So they say that this is 0.5 liters per breath, which is 500 milliliters of air that is taken in on each inhale. So this is called our tidal volume. The minute ventilation, so minute ventilation, is the total volume of air entering the lungs in 1 minute. So the average minute ventilation is roughly 6 liters. So how you figure out yours is you take your breathing rate. So your breathing rate is how many breaths you take per minute. Okay, so let's say it's 14 breaths per minute. I'm just going to take a number. Then you times that by 0.5. And then you come up with the minute ventilation. So this is the volume of air entering your lungs in 1 minute. So if you breathe 14 breaths in 1 minute, and you times that by 0.5, it comes out to 7. So that means you're taking 7 liters of air in each minute. So it's quite astonishing to work out yours so that you see where you fall on this scale. And so the body oxygen level test, or body oxygen level test assessment that is done is to determine this relative breathing during exercise and during rest. Okay, and when we find this out, it tells us how our body responds to carbon dioxide in our blood. So one of the things, I'll just read you a little bit that Patrick says, and all of this is in your manual in the first couple of pages. So the urge to breathe, okay, is caused by a buildup of carbon dioxide in the blood and the lack of oxygen that is in the blood when you perform this Bolt test, which we're going to do in a moment. The length that happens in your breath hold, okay, is influenced by how much carbon dioxide you are able to tolerate. So by increasing your ability to tolerate this buildup of carbon dioxide through breathing exercises and maintaining a calm breath during rest, and lighter breathing during exercise. So what we're going to do is we're going to perform this test that is going to give you an awareness of how your body how your body is responding to the amount of carbon dioxide. And this will determine your breathing pattern in rest, and also how quickly you become breathless during exercise. So this test is done while usually relaxing for about 10 minutes, so not doing any activity, or it's best done when you first wake up in the morning. So a lot of the time I do it when I'm lying in bed when I first wake up. I like to have a phone to have on my stopwatch. You might also find that having your stopwatch feature on your phone is really helpful for you to determine to count the breath that you're able to hold. So what happens is we're going to take an inhale and an exhale out of our nose. And at the end of the exhale, you're going to gently plug your nose and you're going to hold your breath until the first urge to breathe. And Patrick has a list of what that feels like when you're experiencing the first urge to breathe. So I'm going to read it just so that I get it correctly. So he says, the first desire to breathe, then you release and you inhale. And you want to look at how many seconds you were able to hold. And this first sensations of needing to breathe can feel like the need to swallow, or you start to feel your airways constricting. Okay, you may also feel involuntary contractions in your breathing muscles, so in the abdomen, okay, in the throat, somewhere in the chest. Okay, so it is very important to know as we measure your BOLT score that it's when you stop the hold is when your body has this first reaction to want to breathe air in. Okay, so that's when you would let go of the hold and look at how long it is. It's not how long you can maximally hold your breath. Okay, so when you feel that first urge to kind of breathe in any of those sensations, so that feeling in the throat, a constricting in the belly, sometimes in the chest, okay, you start to feel this urge to breathe. That's when you release and you notice what your time is. So we're going to do this together, and then you're going to record your score, and then I'll talk a little bit about the scores at the end. So if you are coming from a lot of activity right now, then I suggest you pause this recording and just take a moment to lie down still for 10 minutes. Okay? And then when you're ready, you resume this recording after resting for 10 minutes. Okay, so when we come back after holding our breath, it should only take you 1 to 2 breaths to go back to regular breathing. If it takes more than 1 to 2 breaths to come back to regular breathing, then that's a sign that you held your breath for too long. So just take a moment to settle. We're going to take a couple breaths before we go into this, just to settle. One of the things I notice that when I do a breath hold, if I think about the breath hold, then I tend to feel a little bit more anxious. But if I let my awareness drop down into my lower belly or my pelvic floor, and I notice just a sense of ease in my body and my mind, then I notice that my body responds a lot better to the carbon dioxide in my blood. So having your timer, whatever you're using, ready. I'm just going to take a couple more breaths to settle. And then when you start to feel ready, you're going to softly take an inhalation. And then you're going to exhale and plug the nose and start your timer. When you feel that urge to breathe, you're going to release the nostril and pause your timer, or just glance down to look at what your time was. Go back to a regular breath. So you should notice that you can return to a regular breath within 1 to 2 breaths. So I'm just going to give you time to do that one more time. I'm going to do mine. I notice us yogis, we tend to want to hold the breath for a long time, and sometimes we hold it for longer than that first urge to breathe. So our Bolt assessment is not really accurate sometimes the first time that we take it. So just noticing and maybe just taking a moment to do it again. At the bottom of the exhale, plugging your nostril. And releasing at that first urge to breathe. And I just glanced down at my time, and then you should be able to go back to a relaxed breathing pattern within 1 to 2 breaths. So taking note what your score is. So on average, usually if you exercise frequently, usually people are around 20. They can hold for around 20 seconds. If for some reason you are below 20 seconds, and I remember the first time I did this test, I was below 20 seconds, and it made me really start to realize my breathing pattern, and I've been working on my breathing pattern, so now I am up to about 24, 25. They say if you're below, Patrick says if you're below 20 seconds, there is a good chance you might experience your nose feeling blocked. You might cough quite a bit or have wheezing. You might find your sleep is disrupted. You might notice snoring or feeling fatigue during the day. And when you exercise, you have breathlessness. So the goal is to increase your Bolt score to 40 seconds or above to optimal health and athletic performance. So just noticing where you are. Doing different pranayama techniques to lengthen the breath and pausing and having kumbhakas as in the box breath. Patrick has a really simple technique that he says to notice that you're always breathing in and out of the nose. Also, when you're sleeping is very important. When you're exercising is very important. So one of the things, which is a simple thing that he says in his book, is you can just be walking and just start walking. And then as you've walked, maybe I've been doing it around my house. I have a circular kind of pattern in my house. So I walk around my house and then I plug my nose and I walk again, and I allow myself to have a breath hold as I'm exercising. So my body is getting used to this buildup of carbon dioxide. And then I let it go. So in time, you're supposed to work up to, in the breath hold, to be able to walk 40 steps. So roughly you can start to count, work it up slowly. But this is one way that you can increase your Bolt score over time. So I hope this was useful for you, and thank you for taking the Bolt assessment test with me.